He's going to be understated, but it feels like he just phenomenal athlete. It feels like he still has that lunch pail mentality a little bit.
Something happened in Rome on Thursday, something that changed the conversation permanently. A tennis player, a rival, someone who has faced him across a net, finally dropped the act. No careful PR answer, no every match is winnable nonsense. Just the truth, raw, uncomfortable, on record. They admitted what everyone already knew. Jannik Sinner has become absolutely unstoppable. 16 months ago, Sinner sat in a Melbourne locker room.
Tells me if I ever say that again, that I may not be invited back in the bedroom. So
I
I gotta be careful. We've been together almost 21 years.
And considered walking away from tennis. His own words, players avoided him at meals. A doping case with his name on it was tearing through the sport. Djokovic called the outcome strange. Kyrgios called him something worse. Serena Williams said she would have lost 20 years for the same thing. They did not kill his career. They handed him a target. Thursday in Rome, May 14, 2026, Sinner broke Djokovic's 15-year Masters record, win number 32. 5 consecutive Masters titles this season: Indian Wells, Miami, Monte Carlo, Madrid. Rome is next. No player in ATP history has ever done that. Alexander Zverev looked straight into the camera after losing to him and said it. No hesitation, no spin. Subscribe before this one drops. You genuinely do not want to miss what comes next. Alexander Zverev said it after the Australian Open final. He stood next to the trophy he could not touch. He looked at the reporters, and he said, "You are the best player in the world by far. I was hoping I could be more of a competitor today, but you are just too good. It is as simple as that." That is not a losing player being gracious. That is a top 3 talent in the world running out of explanations. Zverev has reached 3 Grand Slam finals. He has won an Olympic gold medal. He is not someone who folds easily or speaks carelessly. When Alexander Zverev tells you someone is simply too good, you listen. Because that sentence cost him something to say. And Zverev is not alone. This is the part that the mainstream tennis coverage keeps burying under match statistics and ranking points. The players, the ones inside the tour, the ones sharing practice courts and locker rooms with Jannik Sinner, have been shifting their language for months. Quietly at first, then louder. The word unstoppable started appearing not in fan forums, but in press conferences. Not from journalists asking leading questions. From the players themselves, unprompted, reaching for the only word that fit. To understand why that matters, you need to go back to where this story actually started. Not the trophies, not the records. The ban. February 9, 2025. Sinner began serving a 3-month suspension handed down through a settlement with the World Anti-Doping Agency. He had tested positive for clostebol, a banned anabolic substance, during the 2024 Indian Wells Masters. His explanation was that his physiotherapist had used a spray containing the substance on himself and then, without gloves, treated Sinner directly. The contamination was accidental. WADA's own general counsel described the case publicly as a million miles from doping. The science backed Sinner. The intent was never in question. None of that stopped the sport from turning on him. Novak Djokovic called the 3-month sanction strange and accused authorities of favoritism. Nick Kyrgios went further, repeatedly and loudly, on podcasts and social media, suggesting the entire account was false and that Sinner had received preferential treatment because of his ranking. Serena Williams entered the conversation and said that if the same situation had happened to her, she would have been banned for 20 years and had Grand Slams stripped from her record. The debate consumed tennis for weeks. The locker room, that closed, private world where players eat together and warm up together and exist between matches, became hostile territory for the world number 1. Sinner described it himself. He told Italian state broadcaster RAI that he did not feel comfortable in the locker room during the Australian Open, that players looked at him differently, that he ate his meals feeling the weight of everyone around him. He said he considered taking time off after Melbourne. He said he had a tough time accepting the 3 months, not because of the inconvenience, because he knew he had done nothing wrong, and the people who were supposed to be his peers had already decided otherwise. He served the ban, he trained in Doha, he stayed quiet publicly. He came back in May 2025 at the Italian Open in Rome. The same tournament where he now stands one win from the final and lost to Alcaraz in the final. He went to Roland Garros and reached his first French Open final, won the first two sets against Alcaraz, and held 3 consecutive championship points at 5-3, 40-0 in the fourth set. Alcaraz saved all 3. The match went to a fifth set super tiebreak. Alcaraz won 10-2. The final lasted 5 hours and 29 minutes, the longest in French Open history. Most players would have needed weeks to recover from that psychologically. Sinner went to Wimbledon 5 weeks later and beat Alcaraz in 4 sets. He became the first Italian man to win Wimbledon in history. He described the victory not as the greatest moment of his career, but as the proudest, because of everything that came before it, because of everything that had been said about him in that locker room, because of every meal he ate alone while the sport debated whether he deserved to be there. He ended 2025 with 6 titles: Australian Open, Wimbledon, Vienna, Beijing, Paris Masters, ATP Finals. He defended his ATP Finals crown in Turin without losing a single set across the entire week. He beat Alcaraz in the final 7-6, 7-5. His indoor hard-court winning streak reached 31 consecutive matches. His season record finished at 58 wins and 6 losses. In the entire calendar year, he became the first player in ATP history, since statistical records began in 1991, to simultaneously lead the tour in both percentage of service games won at 92% across 64 matches, and percentage of return games won at 32.63%. No player had ever led both categories in the same season. Not Federer, not Nadal, not Djokovic. Then 2026 started. The Australian Open semi-final brought a loss to Djokovic, one of only 2 defeats on his season record. A quarterfinal exit against Jakub Mensik in Doha in February was the other. Those are the 2 blemishes on a 34-2 record that has otherwise been historically unprecedented at the Masters 1000 level. What followed those 2 losses is the part that genuinely unsettles the rest of the tour. Sinner went to Indian Wells in March and won the title without dropping a set, defeating Medvedev in a final where he came back from 0-4 down in the second set tiebreak to win 7 consecutive points. That win made him only the 3rd man in history to complete the full set of 6 ATP Masters 1000 hard-court titles, joining Federer and Djokovic. He then went to Miami and won without dropping a set again, completing the Sunshine Double without losing a set, the first player in history to achieve that. Back-to-back Masters titles, both on hard courts, both without a set dropped. He changed surfaces and went to Monte Carlo on clay. He beat Alcaraz in the final in straight sets and reclaimed the world #1 ranking for the first time since November. He then went to Madrid and dismantled Zverev 6-1, 6-2 in the final. 5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles: Paris, Indian Wells, Miami, Monte Carlo, Madrid. No player in the history of the ATP, not Federer in his prime, not Djokovic at his most dominant, not Nadal on his best clay season, had ever won 5 consecutive Masters titles. Sinner did it at 24 years old, across 3 different surfaces, in 6 months, then Rome, this week, this tournament, the only Masters 1000 event he has never won. The last piece of the career Golden Masters, a feat only Djokovic has ever completed. He beat Popyrin 6-2, 6-0. He beat Pellegrino 6-2, 6-3. He beat Rublev 6-2, 6-4. Win number 32 at Masters 1000 level, consecutive, breaking Djokovic's record that had stood since 2011. 15 years, gone in 92 minutes on a Thursday afternoon in Rome, while the crowd wore orange and held signs begging him to make them dream. He is now in today's semifinal against Medvedev. Their head-to-head stands at 9-7 in Sinner's favor. He has won 9 of their last 10 meetings. Medvedev is a former world #1, a US Open champion, a player with the experience and the variety to cause problems. But Medvedev himself has already said what he thinks. He stood in a press conference earlier this season and acknowledged that facing Sinner right now requires a different mindset entirely, that the margin for error against him is effectively 0 because he does not give you anything. No loose games, no mental lapses, no openings. That is the other thing. The numbers confirm, and the players are slowly confessing. Sinner does not beat you because he is flashier than you or more athletic than you or hits harder than you. He beats you because he is more consistent than any human being has any right to be at this level. Across his current 27-match Masters winning streak, he has dropped exactly 2 sets. 2. Across tournaments in 5 different cities on 2 different surfaces against the best players in the world. The margin of error in his game has essentially been engineered out of existence. His coaches changed his serve mechanics after the 2025 US Open. The improvement was immediate and measurable. His first serve percentage climbed. His second serve aggression increased. His return game, already statistically the best on tour, became even more suffocating. Simone Vagnozzi, one of his coaches, said after the ATP Finals that the goal going forward was to make Sinner even more aggressive than he already was. At the time, that sounded like coach speak. Looking at the 2026 season, it sounds like a warning that nobody took seriously enough. Alcaraz is the only player who has consistently found answers. Their rivalry is the defining argument of this era. Alcaraz leads the head-to-head 10-6. He won Roland Garros last year in one of the greatest matches ever played. He won the US Open in 2025. He is a generational talent with a creativity and physicality that genuinely troubles Sinner in a way nothing else does. But Alcaraz is watching this week from Spain with a wrist injury. He cannot defend his Rome title. He cannot stop what is building 10 days before Roland Garros. And the rest of the tour, the players who are healthy, who are present, who are competing, are discovering that without Alcaraz in the draw, the tournament feels like a formality. That is not something rivals say publicly, but it is what the results are saying for them. Tim Henman watched Sinner break the Masters record on Thursday and said on camera, "It's absolutely phenomenal. The Masters 1000s are the top players all competing against each other. There are absolutely no easy matches. When you take into context the challenge of not having a bad day at the office over a long period of time, it's a phenomenal achievement." Henman is not someone given to exaggeration. He is precise and measured. For him to reach for absolutely phenomenal twice in the same answer tells you something about the scale of what is being witnessed. And then Roland Garros starts in 10 days, the one Grand Slam missing from Sinner's collection, the tournament where he held 3 match points last year and still lost, the court where his career could genuinely reach a level of completeness that only a handful of players in history have touched. He will arrive there having potentially just won Rome, having won 5 or 6 consecutive Masters titles, having broken every meaningful record at this level of the sport, having done all of it in the 18 months after a doping case nearly ended everything. The players who doubted him in that Melbourne locker room in January 2025 will be in Paris. They will walk past him in the corridors. They will see his name at the top of the draw, and they will have to sit in press conferences and answer questions about whether anyone can stop him. Based on what has happened since March, the honest answer is becoming harder to avoid. One by one, tournament by tournament, record by record, the rivals are arriving at the same conclusion. Not because they want to, not because it helps their confidence or their preparation or their mental state going into matches. Because Jannik Sinner has become absolutely unstoppable. And when the evidence is this overwhelming, even the players who hate admitting it have run out of other things to say. If this video gave you something the highlight reels never do, the full picture, the real context, the story behind the scoreline, then subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the bell. Because what happens at Roland Garros in 10 days could be the most important chapter of this entire story, and you do not want to find out about it from someone else's thumbnail.